Alright everyone, it's time for another cool video here encouraging U.S. citizens to employ jury nullification as part of a process to essentially nullify all federal gun control. Here's how. And this follows in the wake of Missouri becoming, I think, the third or fourth state, essentially, to sign legislation that makes it clear that they're not going to coordinate and cooperate with the feds when it comes to unconstitutional anti-gun edicts coming down from Biden's DOJ, of course. Every bit of federal gun control is unconstitutional. It's fairly clear. The idea that state supremacy overrules the states, okay. It doesn't overrule the Second Amendment. The concept that the Second Amendment comes with the caveat of the federal government being able to tamper with it at any moment would be akin to saying, well, you have the right to privacy, but if the government wants to search through your garbage and search through your papers and stuff and you know, pat you down when you walk out your door, that's actually okay because, you see, we've signed legislation and we have a bureau that will enforce it instead of it being like actual law enforcement. Or it'd be like, well, the government can't interfere with the freedoms of the press, but we're going to bust up your press. We're going to have a bureau do it for us, or a semi-private entity. Clearly that's not the case. The problem is that we've subjugated the Second Amendment to pragmatism, and I say false pragmatism. Initially it was Jim Crow, it was the Cruikshank decision, converting a right into a privilege and saying, well, this involves the militia in the sense of state militias. So that means recently freed blacks can be denied firearms. Because it's not a right, it involves the militia. Well, they're not the militia is the military. The Democrats are still saying that to this day. They still sound like the Jim Crowites of the 1870s. That was the first wave of it. The second was like in the Bonnie and Clyde Al Capone era, and they said, well, shit, these gangsters have automatic weapons. Quick, we need an NFA. We need to crack down on these weapons that they've got. Now, of course, it was sold to the public in the sense of, well, we have to do this. Oh my God, we can't fight the gangsters without disarming people. But that was never actually the case. They had more weapons, they had more manpower, and the problem really wasn't that big. Those gangs largely disappeared once Prohibition ended anyway. But they, at the time, of course, back in the gangland days, with the Tommy gun toters, they had to crack down. And they get around it by doing like ammo bans, import bans, and shit like that as well. It's all unlawful. But compelling higher courts to actually declare it unlawful by getting them to take up cases is difficult for the same reasons that the court is reluctant to take up any hot-button case. The court would rather kick the can and let states handle it. Well, the states have begun to handle it. This could be a bellwether for what is to come, which is that the states can effectively begin nullifying federal gun control simply by refusing to cooperate and share data with federal forces. They can do this. There's a precedent. It's called the drug war. The drug war is effectively beginning to end. Not because the federal government has changed any guidelines. Marijuana is still a Schedule I substance. It is still a federal crime to own marijuana, to grow marijuana. It's a felony. When's the last time that a person got busted for growing a couple of weed plants? Doesn't really happen. The states occasionally will go after them in states which haven't nullified the federal laws. But there are a dozen states where it's legal to have pot. The states don't care. If the locals don't care, the stadies don't care, the sheriffs don't care, do you think the feds are going to get a tip-off in the first place? And then do you think that they're going to get any local enforcement to help them bust your pot plants? No, because the state, as far as they're concerned, doesn't give a shit. Missouri is now doing this with guns. And a host of local and sheriff law enforcement around the country, even in states where pot's still illegal, have said, look, we're not going to bust you for the joint. We have better things to do. I didn't get this call. You smell weed next door? Maybe it's just a skunk. I'm not responding. I don't have time for this. Bravo to them, by the way. They've effectively nullified state law in some cases. They should do this with guns. Second Amendment is quite clear. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The militia is the people. To be regulated means well supplied and able to function. Has nothing to do with government regulation. The NFA is illegal, and all other gun control is illegal. By the way, this trickles down through D.C. and Heller, I believe it was, to the states. They're bound to the same constitutional mandate. They don't have the right to take away your expanded magazines either. Nullify it then. Here's how. The first step is what Missouri's doing. States simply saying, we're not going to enforce it ourselves, and we're not going to cooperate in the enforcement because to our minds it's unconstitutional. Step 2, take over your local government. Your city council, your mayor, and so forth, they lean on the police commissioner. There's your locals. They lean on the staties if you go to the state level. So there's the staties. What about the sheriffs? They're elected. So get sheriffs that will promise, vow, swear, sign an oath that they won't help to enforce these things. If the sheriffs, the staties, and the locals aren't doing it, the feds aren't going to come in there and fuck around. They don't have the resources. This is why the Democrats want a federal police force. They want another million foot soldiers to be able to go around the states. By the way, liberals who are actually crazy enough to support this, you realize this would allow them to bust potheads too, right? It's still, the drug war is still there on the federal level. It's just not effectively there at the moment in half the states because it's being ignored by the states. State supremacy is way better than federal supremacy for virtually any intent or purpose. It's more efficient, it tends to be more constitutional, it's certainly more restrained. States will never have the resources to fuck with people as much as the feds can appropriate, so it tends to be less abuse insofar as there's any at all. The third step is jury nullification. That's what I intend to address here. Now, jury nullification is a tricky issue. If you know about it, you're not supposed to serve on a jury. And if you're asked if you know about it and you lie, you're breaking the law. So then what do? Well, you have to make that decision for yourself. If you want to get off jury duty, you can just wear a shirt that says, I love jury nullification, into the jury pool when they're choosing who's going to be a juror. I don't think that they're going to choose you, though that might be a problem. They might tell you to turn the shirt inside out so as not to prejudice other people through a Google search. Jury nullification, though, in brief, is this. And in the state of New Hampshire, by the way, where I was born, it is legal for the defendant to acknowledge its existence and tell the jury, hey, by the way, you can nullify my verdict. I don't think that's the case in any other state. The states like Missouri and so forth need to start imposing rules that jury nullification can be brought up during trials. I guarantee you'd have a lot less people in prison. I guarantee fucking that probably 20-30% of people wouldn't even get convicted at that point, even with rock solid evidence. This happened in Rutland. There was a case, a woman who the community felt she was legitimately aggrieved, I guess. This is why this happened. I don't know the backstory, so I'm not vouching for it. She walked into the police department and stabbed one of the cops at his desk. She attempted to murder him. She got off scot-free. It was clear jury nullification. We had video of her doing it. She clearly broke the law. She was clearly not nuts, but she was found not guilty. Now, I don't know. Maybe that cop was just an asshole and everyone hated them. I'm not sure. But it was nullification. This happened also during Prohibition. The situation is this with jury nullification. You're on a jury. The person is guilty, or reasonably assumed to be guilty. The evidence is there. The prosecution has prevailed insofar as they provided evidence. But you don't think that what they're going to be convicted of should be a crime. They had a 30-round magazine, and they're only allowed to have a 10-round magazine, so they're up on gun charges. They had an ounce 0.1 of pot instead of under an ounce. So they're going to be charged with felony intent to deal or something. They had a moonshine still in their garage. They didn't have a liquor license. So they're in trouble. But you don't think that a moonshine still should be illegal. You don't think that a 30-round mag should be illegal. You don't think that pot should be illegal. They had a swastika flag out on their front lawn. Someone brought hate crime charges. You don't think that it should be considered a hate crime. It's their property and who cares? You simply say, I can't in good faith find them guilty. I just don't think that they're guilty. Then the foreman says, well, but we've got video of the swastika flag. Here's the feds literally showed us the still. I don't think they're guilty. I think it was planted on them. Just like crack in the inner city. You've nullified the verdict will be a hung jury. Unless you can convince them to also go along with it. If you are in the jury room and you say, hey, but there's this thing called jury nullification. Look, this shouldn't even be illegal. That might cause a legal problem. You might get held in contempt of court. But if you just sit there and say, no, I refuse to convict, they can't compel you. The judge can send you back and say, okay, I don't want a hung jury. Go and deliver a verdict. They can't force it, though. They can sequester you away for days if they want to. At some point, your breath is longer than theirs because they've got other cases to try. This is jury nullification. This is why Prohibition ended. This is why the drug war is ending. In certain states, this is already why elements of gun control are basically non-enforced. Look at Maryland. There are tales of jury nullification being successfully employed there with regards to their magazine restrictions. I'm sure this will happen in the state of Vermont as well. People need to be aware of it. They need to spread awareness of it. They need to employ it. But also, keep in mind, if you have a digital trail, like I'm creating with this video, by the way, I'm never going to be able to serve on a jury and use this. I think because of the size of my platform, it's more important for me to tell other people that they should use it, to disseminate that information. Maybe this video shouldn't be in your view history if you're a U.S. citizen and you intend to use jury nullification. Maybe you should scrub that from your viewing history. Clear your browser and stuff. Because they will check, potentially, when they're going through the jury pool. Maybe if you're a subscriber of Styx Hexenhammer, the evil libertarian, maybe you've unsubscribed once you got the jury letter or something. I'm not telling you to lie. I'm just saying you don't have to provide any information publicly about the situation that you wouldn't want out there if you intended to potentially be selected for jury duty. And keep in mind, I mean, the chance of you being selected is still not particularly high. They're going to pull 100 people in. They're going to choose 12 people out of them. Again, you can also just use this as an excuse to get out of jury duty and say, well, I'll nullify the verdict because, I don't believe this should be a crime. Yeah, I know that she stabbed several orphans, but I think stabbing orphans should be a national holiday and everyone should do it, so I don't think you want me on your jury. They're not going to choose you for jury selection. So, see, you've got two possible benefits. You could save somebody from going to prison for a non-crime, like having the wrong gun or self-defense or something. You have people being prosecuted for defending themselves against burglars and stupid shit like that. We should nullify every such case. Or you can just not have jury duty if you want to be lazy. I think they pay for jury duty. It's probably like sub-minimum wage. I doubt they get what Bernie Sanders wants the minimum wage to be. So yeah, those are the 3 steps. Nullify all related crimes. Pressure your states, but first take over the local governments, especially sheriff's offices, city councils, and stuff like that. Turnout for those elections is abysmal, like 20-30%. You can do it in your small town community. There might be 200 or 300 votes separating the winner from the loser. Make sure to get the sheriff to swear an oath not to violate the Second Amendment. A lot of them already have. Overthrow the police commissioners. Get people in there that are, less corrupt and, or at the very least, are going to respect basic human rights. That's what should be done. It's this patriotic duty of all U.S. citizens to begin standing up against the unconstitutional crap that we've begun to see. It's coming down from the feds, so we need to fight upwards from the local level. You can't go from the top. You can't just say, well, we're going to elect Trump again. Everything will be fine. Okay, then for 4 years, the president is reasonably pro-gun. That's it. You haven't done anything about the states, about commissioners, about sheriffs. You haven't done anything about existing gun control. You haven't done anything about states. You haven't set up for nullification. You've done nothing. You voted for the president. Congratulations. This is the problem we had after 2016. People expected everything to magically get better because of one person. They didn't understand the civic structure of the U.S. government is far more complex and that a lot of the abuse happens at the state level. Take over your localities, then take over your states and nullify it all. Nullify censorship. Use the state's power to go after Silicon Valley. Again, you'll need a lot of states to do it. Yeah, it'll be hard work. You'll have to get up and vote. You might even have to put a sticker on a lamppost or knock on a couple of doors and say, hey, have you heard of jury nullification? You might have to hang up a sign. You've got a day off, probably. Use it wisely. Instead of just sitting there playing video games and dreaming of a better future, fucking make one. This is how the greatest generation operated. That's why they were the greatest. Let's be another one. That's about all. Peace out.